Hello, Anna. Welcome to the show. It's such a pleasure to have you here all the way from Iceland today.
Thank you so much, Katie. I'm very looking forward to this conversation with you today.
We have so many different topics in common around leadership and zone of genius. We have so many things. But first of all, I'm curious about the name that you have, Mindshifter. I think this is a fantastic term. What does it mean for you? What does Mindshifter mean for you?
Yeah, thank you for asking. And I do agree with you that we have so many topics in common, and you already discussed so many of them and brought so much value about them on the show to your listeners. So no pressure at all there to to bring something new. But let's give it a try. So mind shifter is a term that one of the career coaches I worked with coined for me. And that happened in a conversation. She was trying to drag out of me what is the unique part of my work? What am I bringing to the room? What kind of value? Why is it different? Why should I be focusing on it? And it was just in the beginning when I was considering whether to go back into employment or start my own business. And if business, then in which area at all. And she was like, but what do you do it? And I was saying like, yeah, I do this and that. But what is the effect of that on the people? And I was just trying to find some right words. I was feeling like a bad student because I realized that she was almost getting frustrated with me not getting those. And she was like, no, you're a mind shifter. You really come into the room, you say something or you ask a question, and people's roof just goes up and it kind of moves a bit. And then they have to realign the whole being of them physically and mentally and emotionally to that new position of that roof. So that was how she defined it for me, and it really resonated. And it does describe quite well what I do. I create a space where people get the luxury of the time and the safety net to reflect, to explore, to say, I don't have a clue. Let's figure it out. And that's what we do with my clients. We explore them. So I work with leaders quite a lot, right? And they come to me quite often because they want to be better leaders of the others. But a lot of work, around 80% of work we do, is on themselves. And you, Katie, talk a lot about that, right? On the show. Understanding yourself, leading yourself is a very important part of leading the others in a successful and sustainable way. So we're doing that, and they start thinking differently. They dare to see themselves from a different perspective, from a more authentic place. They maybe take off some filters or some roles that they have been grown into by their society and their official role within an organization and so on. And when they dare to do those things, that take off those layers that don't belong on them, they become a transformative leaders that they want to be. They really manage to get out the firefighter mode and be there for their people so that it's not on them personally to grow their company, to take it to the next level. They are more taking care of growing their people so that the people can grow the company.
Yes, I love what you said about self leadership, and that is so fundamental to be able to lead others and stopping that firefighter mode, right? I think this is so many leaders nowadays are in firefighter mode, especially given the current context. But I think in general, it has always been the case in a state of urgency almost. Yes, fantastic. The term of mind shifter. I feel that once we're able to change our perception, this has such a huge impact on the way we lead ourselves, on the way we lead others. It really all comes down to the way we frame our thoughts and manage our emotions also. What are the most common struggles that you see in leaders? So they're in firefighter mode, they come to you. What are they struggling most with?
You know, Katie, they are successful people, right? They're high performers who, from the outside, have it all. They are achieving success within their career, be it entrepreneurial or corporate. They're quite good with their societal status. So their private life, they maybe have some. Well, they usually have some hobbies. They work out. They have a family. They have a good home and those kind of things. But the perfectionism and that inner feeling of the imposter syndrome is quite prevalent. That's one of the groups that I work with. The other group are the people who have similar background in a way, but they just feel like It's not about that, oh, I don't deserve to be in this space, in this position, and so on. So it's not about the imposter syndrome and feeling that they need to achieve more. It's more that they feel like they have derailed somewhere on the way. And just this tiny misalignment somewhere in the beginning, that's 1 degree, after years and years of following this 1 degree off, has created a huge gap between who they want to be as the best version of themselves and who they are right now. What we're talking about, this firefighter mode, it comes like those people who are in that firefighter mode, it's not about them being stupid, being lazy, being somehow not intelligent or nasty as leaders or anything like that. No, they have always some good intentions. They just don't have the tools and the space to be the proactive leaders that they want to be. And that creates frustration. And that, of course, affects the way they lead the others, the signals and the message they're sending. And that's what we work on. So it's either the misalignment in general of the person who they want to be, or it's this perfectionism and feeling like, okay, I don't deserve to be here. So this low self-esteem that we need to strengthen, that basically brings the dissatisfaction with the life to my clients.
Interesting. So the two categories, one of them with the perfectionism and imposter syndrome that you seem to correlate, which is also interesting. So maybe because they have imposter syndrome, they overcompensate by being perfectionists. That seems to make sense. And then the misalignment. This is also really interesting to see that some people have this 1% off course. And like you said, over the years, it adds up and then they feel they're very different place. But I'm thinking, there could be some people, like you said, it's because they're not in the place they want to be for themselves. Others, I'm sure it's also in terms of career. They might build up this whole leadership career, leadership path in a company, end up being a top manager or CEO and think, wait, maybe I always wanted to be a painter or a writer or maybe something creative or not manage a whole business. So I think there can also be a misalignment there. Let's go back to the whole perfectionism and imposter syndrome. I'm curious, is this something you struggled with personally?
Of course.
Because we always coach what we struggle with, right? So every
Yeah.
time someone tells me they coach in an area, I'm like, okay, then how did you overcome this? What helped you to overcome these two aspects if you think they're related?
So I'll first address maybe the relation a bit and explain why I think about that. As I mentioned just a minute ago, I think that those are rooted in the low self-esteem or weak self-esteem. This is the feeling, or self-esteem, how I define it, is the feeling that I am enough as I am. I'm worthy of love and appreciation. And by love and appreciation, I mean of our own and of the others around ourselves. And usually that's the point that a lot of people are falling through on, the appreciation of themselves or loving themselves. This is the easiest way for me to identify that the person has struggles with self-esteem. When I ask, can you genuinely mean it when you say, I love myself? And most of the people whom I work with in the first conversation, I usually ask this question in the intake form, and they're like, no, why would I? And stuff like that. And it's like, why wouldn't you love yourself, right? And the thing is that when we don't believe that we're worthy of love and appreciation, what do? We try to deserve it. We start achieving, we start performing, we want everything to be perfect, because if we do something imperfect, we don't get the love that we have been struggling to get, right? And so that's the perfectionism part of it. And also the imposter syndrome. When we feel like we don't deserve the love and appreciation, it also translates into all the other areas, right? Or like specific areas of our life. We don't deserve in this position at work. We don't deserve our partner and their love. We don't deserve fill in the blanks. And that's the imposter syndrome. They'll come. One day I'll wake up and there will be like all this important to me people next to my door, standing, waiting outside with some kind of, I don't know, some demonstration like, why the hell are you in this spot in your life? You don't deserve to be here. So this is the things that are kind of rooted in the low self-esteem. And that's why we work a lot with the tools and techniques and strategies to strengthen that with my clients. Did I derail too much from the question?
No,
So,
no, no, absolutely not. You explained
yeah,
how they were correlated, and
yeah.
I'm really curious, like, what are some of the key strategies that helped you to work on this too? So it was great to hear how they related, and now, like, how did you improve on these areas?
So I started by observation. I realized that I do have this low self-esteem, and that was quite a stark contrast to, or it was very evident in my relationship with my now husband and early boyfriend, who on my bad days would say I love you, and I would be like, why do you love me? I feel like crap today and I don't deserve it. And he was like, because I love you. And I was like, okay, he can love me no matter how bad my day was, no matter how much I maybe like failed at work and so on and so forth. Why can't I do it with myself? And I started working on those things actively, trying to really support myself, trying to to build this inner cheerleader to really wait out the inner critic that we quite a lot of us have. And I'm pretty sure that the vast majority of your listeners do as well, Katie. So one of the practical things that I've done with the perfectionism, fighting it, was really setting the good enough standard to myself and then stopping there. And it physically hurt. I'm pretty sure you can relate to that when you struggle from perfectionism. I was working with project management at that moment in a big corporation. That meant a lot of presentations for different stakeholders within my team, within some other teams, to the management, and so on and so forth. And preparing those presentations, perfectionist as I was, I would like align everything pixel to pixel, from slide to slide, the text box in the same area, and so on and so forth. And I realized that, okay, I'm spending extra 3 hours on doing those things. And I was like, okay, what is good enough here? Good enough is that I've prepared the presentation and I went through it once or twice. And I was defined depending on the seriousness of this presentation or so. And then I stop. And I want to assure you that I would always find some misalignments. I would always find some typos when I was presenting. And it would feel awkward. And as I said, it was this kind of physical feeling of pain, like, it's so perfect. But I really made myself to not spend those extra 3 hours on doing those things. Instead, going and actually working with my team, talking to them, seeing how I can help them solve the problems, how we can remove the roadblocks from their work, and so on and so forth. So set this good enough standard for yourself. And think about it. Whenever you violate that limit for yourself that you have set yourself, you're taking this time and this effort and your energy from something else. And especially for a leader, think about it. What is the price of staying with this task, for example, or in this project, trying to get it perfect? What are you having to compromise on to get that time for yourself? And time is precious nowadays. All the leaders, they want more time, right? Some of my clients just jokingly ask, like, okay, how can I help you this week? And they're like, can you get some couple of extra hours per day for me just so that no one else knows? And I'm like, no, but we can work on the priorities of yours. And seeing those kind of tasks, what is good enough? Where can you stop? Where you can maybe delegate at all? And it doesn't have to be you to do that task.
It's such a valid point in terms of liberating more hours, that if we let go of perfectionism and we don't obsess about every single detail, it liberates a lot of hours, but also a lot of mental space. And like you were explaining, it correlates with the self-worth. So when we think we're still worthy and we're still worthy of love and self-love, in spite of things not being perfect, this helps, because if we always fall into either the perfectionism route or the hyperachiever route, then we don't know if we're dependent on these things. If we manage to let go, we realize, oh, I'm actually okay, even if I don't have these amazing results, or if I don't have everything perfect. So I know that in my case, I struggled a lot more with the hyperachiever than the perfectionism. Now, for the listeners that want to know the difference, perfectionism is more down to details, just like Anna, you just explained in terms of a presentation, it all being aligned, all perfect, etc. I like to do a thorough job, but not to the extent of perfectionism. Now, hyperachiever is more around results oriented. So it'll be a dependency on awards, publications, clients, income, everything. And if we don't have that, we feel that we're not worthy of love. So it's similar. I'm curious, why do you think it is that when we have low self-esteem, we think that having things perfect, in the case of a perfectionist, or getting loads of great results in the case of a hyperachiever, will actually make us feel better ourselves? Why do we actually think that these things matter?
Well, we don't know another way of getting the appreciation of ourselves and from the others. So it's really about feeling this lack. We're like, okay, something is wrong with me. I'm not in the right space right now as I am. So we're setting this next goal. Quite a lot of the leaders whom I work with, my clients, come into me saying like, okay, I'm now in my mid 40s or early 50s even. I've been a successful entrepreneur for 15, 20 years, but I just feel void because they have been lacking this core of self-esteem, strong one. And they would be like, yeah, I will be happier when I reach this next milestone with number of employees, the revenue, the personal income, the whatever it is, right? So this kind of external factor. So they're like, that finish line, behind it, I will be happier. Behind it, I'll feel fulfilled. Behind it, something else will happen that I will just feel enough and so on. And then they're like, finish that line, and they're like, or cross the finish line, and they're like, not here. Okay, where? And they keep looking. They keep looking outside of themselves. But that's the thing. As one of my clients said, when she had this discussion with her husband, she was like, I'm not happy with my role. And he would say, let's go back to that country, because they moved between the countries with her new assignment. We both loved that country. You enjoyed it there. And let's just go back there. And she said, but you'll take me with you there. I'll also be unhappy there. I'll also find something to be stressed about. And that's the thing. We can't fix the void and can't fill the void that we have within ourselves with external things. And that's what the society has been programming us to do. It's easy to measure something from the outside. Have I reached this milestone with my company? Have I gotten the new accommodation? Have I bought a new car when it came out? And so on and so forth. It's more visible. It's easier to kind of grab it, but it doesn't fulfill the purpose. And that's the problem that we're seeing nowadays.
This is something that I remember the first time I had that realization, not from just hearing it. It's not outside, it's within, but from actually feeling it. It was just so powerful. And every time I hear it, just listening to you say it again, every single time I hear it, every single time I read it or think about it, I think, wow, this is so powerful. Because even if we know it, and I'm sure this also happens to you, Anna, even though we know it, sometimes we fall into the trap. Sometimes we fall into the, once I have this, once I reach this milestone, and then we remember, and it comes back to us, and we realign, and we find this inner peace, especially when we have a meditation practice. But even if we don't, just by connecting with nature or reconnecting, I think it's a lack of connection in general. So inner connection with ourselves and with nature and with other people, especially in the current period of time where connection is such a major issue. Every time I rediscover, and I think, yes, it's within. So how can you help people measure this? So because they're so used to measuring their fulfillment compared to outside circumstances and results and how their business is growing, how can you help people measure and tune into this inner sense of peace and fulfillment?
I'll answer the question, but Katie, I do want to emphasize what you said. We all go through that, right? And just because I'm helping my clients with that, yeah, just because I help my clients with that doesn't mean that I'm perfect on that. And that's why I always make sure to have coaches that actually help me. Just as I usually give this visual of the best heart surgeon in the world can do a heart surgery on himself. And it's obvious for people, but at the same time, they think that, okay, yeah, how can you be a coach if you don't have your stuff together? It's like, duh, I'm a human. And that's why I can actually help you, because I'm going through those things myself. And I have this perspective of, I've been there, I've done it, and here's what can help you. And here are the things that I've tried and didn't work for me, but you're a different person. Let's try it with you. So it's very important to acknowledge it. I'm not perfect. but that's why I have my supporting team, right? Who help me, who call me out on the things, who challenge me, but also support me. Super important. Going back to your question, the practical things, one of the things that I want like every of my clients to do is to do a structured daily reflection. And you live in Sweden, you maybe know Mia Turnblom, one of the leadership coaches. She is very strong on leadership, self-leadership. And I use as a base framework for myself 4 questions that she suggested, which are, what have I done? And there is a caveat here. So the first question I mentioned, but then let's put an asterisk here and I'll explain later. What have I done less well today? And what's my learning? What have I done well? Or what am I proud of today? And in the second question, you have to write at least 3 things that you've done well or you're proud of. What am I grateful for is number 3. And 4 is, what do I need help with? And with the help question, I see a lot of my clients getting stuck, like, I have troubles asking for help. And I'm like, yeah, but you don't have to go and ask some person. It can be help from yourself. It can be help from whatever you believe in, God, universe, higher power, whatever it is. So sending out that signal, like, okay, I feel like this is your preparation. You're rewiring your brain. The caveats, the asterisks that I mentioned to the first question, the high achievers and the perfectionists who are listening, you're not allowed to use this first question for at least first 2-3 months. You need to focus on, as I said, growing that inner cheerleader. And those 3 questions are your ways to measure that. When you struggle with writing one of them, this is where you need to double down your efforts on writing there. And it can feel soft and fluffy, like, yeah, just opening the journal and writing something down. And you said, Katie, like people who are listening to us right now are probably used to measuring like concrete things. But just give yourself 1 month and then look back to your entries for this 1 month. Look at the trends. This is how you get your emotions, but also your mental state on paper, and you can plot them in a way. Seeing those trends is super powerful. Seeing where you have struggled on a bad day with gratitude, for example, and then going back to a couple of weeks before and seeing what you have been grateful there can help you feel that gratitude now. And again, that lifts you up with your mindset, with your attitude towards things. This is your tool that doesn't cost anything. You probably have some notebook at home. You most probably have some pen at home. Just take those, put next to your bed, and before you go to bed, really set yourself up with those questions to get the right prerequisites for your brain to process the day during the night. This is how you work on your personal growth while you sleep. This is how you set your brain to look for the right things next day. So this is one of the tools that we use, and it's super simple, but that's why it's so powerful.
Yes, often the simpler things are the most powerful one. God, I already struggled to write my 3 accomplishments of the week. So I have the full focus planner, and it's like the first question is write down 3 to 5 accomplishments, and I always sort of stare into space. 5 accomplishments. And the thing is, again, for the people listening, probably if you struggle with this exercise, it's because you do it like I do, and that's not the way to do it, which is you're looking for something huge. So for me, it's like an accomplishment. It'll be, either, a new client or a publication or an award or something really big. But sometimes, and I've learned to change this perspective, an accomplishment can just be you made room to have lunches with some friends. So you took some time to take care of yourself and your well-being. Or it can be that you started the day in a more self-disciplined, focused way with your most important task. Or it can be, so it's not always in terms of accomplishments as in results, but it can be accomplishments from inner perspective, from strengths you're working on. So this is also super valuable. And I love the gratitude part. This is obviously essential. In general, gratitude has so many amazing benefits, but most of all, I feel it changes our perception because of our negative bias. We tend to pick up on all the negative aspects. And if we are used to having a gratitude practice, we start to filter information in a gratitude way. So I think from a perception shifter, for you as a mind shifter, the perception shifter is huge. I'd like to go back quickly on the last 5-10 minutes that we have today. It's flown by so fast. I'd like to quickly go back to the misalignment part, because we discussed a lot around perfectionism and then imposter syndrome. How do you help these leaders to feel that they aren't aligned anymore with the version that they want to be?
We'll go to the question, but just half a minute, Katie, on what you said about the big achievements. High achievers, I can turn to you. The science has shown that the small achievements, like tiny things that you've done during the day, have just as much positive effect on your mindset and on your sense of happiness as the big achievements, with a caveat, if they have been noticed. So your pure action of sitting down in the evening and writing down those 5 or 3 small things that you have done well today, they rewire your brain with just as much effect as you having those big achievements in a day. And think about it. Why do we have to strive for big things? Like, it's difficult to achieve 3 big things every single day, but we can find 3 small things that we can do well, and that helps our brain just as much. Life hack to you from the science. So let's go back to your question, Katie, about the alignment. There we work a lot on the values, first and foremost. We are defining this inner compass of the person, of this best version of themselves, how they want to be. It can be a motto. I usually talk about 3 value words. So the magic 3, the things that really make a lot of sense to you, and they become your like inner checklist, super easy one to see, am I acting right now as this absolute best version of myself, how I want to be? So there is quite a lot of work to do there, like how to come down to those 3 words, or to create some kind of simple motto for yourself. And then a lot of strategies and tools how to really work with those on a daily basis with every action of yours. Because quite a lot of discussion about value words has gone to like, yeah, it's a workshop, when you get all your company employees, for example, you use Post-its and you define something together, and then you put them somewhere in the document, an internal system, and you forget about them until the next workshop, like that. That's the problem with the values. We spending time to define them, but we never live by them. And that is the work that we do with my clients a lot. We are looking for those examples. How can I be that XYZ right now in this situation when I have a underperforming employee? I want to be, for example, present, empathetic, and what should we say, daring, let's say, just coming up with the example right now. And then the person, my client, comes to me with those 3 words in that situation with an underperforming client. And I'm like, okay, how would the empathetic part of you come into that meeting to discuss the lack of performance with your employee? What would be the intention? What kind of questions would the empathetic you ask? What would the daring part of you do for that meeting to happen, and happen in a good, productive way? Those kind of, and like, yeah, how can you make sure that you're present in that situation, in that moment, that you're not self-occupied, you're not thinking about yourself, but you're there to actually help your employee to find the best way for them to perform. So playing with those questions all the time and getting the values to be part of your intentionality every single day is the power of the values. It becomes this inner compass of you that makes it easier to make decisions, or it makes it simple, right? It's not about the easy process. It's not going to be ever easy, especially when you're a leader. It's hard work, and it is work every single day. But with the inner navigation system tuned in, it becomes simpler to see the dangers, to see where you are derailing, and with the habit of practicing the self-leadership, you have the strategies to get back on the track as soon as possible before that 1 degree has become too much of a gap.
The fascinating part is how when we have these key values and words and we start to think in the way you explained, what will I do, if I'm daring? How will I lead, empathetically? Then we start to become daring and empathetic because we're rewiring our nervous system to think according to these filters. So we can literally change our behavior just by regularly asking ourselves certain key questions. And I know I've done this with myself and my clients, and so have you. We can change our whole behavior just by using these questions. I'm curious, Anna, what are your 3 words or your motto?
My words are present, beautiful, and unstoppable.
Oh,
and
nice.
I usually give the example of beautiful as the word that is not a classical value word. And the process how we usually define the words with my clients is that I give them a list of several hundred words and say, go ahead, go wild, cross out or like underline everything that resonates with you, and then we'll play with that. And then basically all that list of things that resonate with you and ideas that you came up with while looking at the list, we try to half it until we get down to 3. You start seeing the patterns. Some words are synonyms, right? Then you choose one that resonates best. Some words are similar, but none of them is representing the others just as well. So you look for an umbrella term for them. And beautiful for me has become this umbrella word. A lot of my list was about the self-care. A lot of my list on my list was about leading by the example, and so on and so forth. And beautiful is not about going and doing some kind of plastic surgeries every week. No, it's about when I look in the mirror in the morning or in the evening and I think, why did I even get up today? Like, what's the point? Look at yourself. That means that I haven't been taking care of my basics. I haven't been spending time for myself. And that means that if I don't give permission to myself, and that's what I bring with me in my coaching practice, I don't give permission to my leaders to take care of themselves, put that oxygen mask on first. By me saying, hey, whoever writes to me of my clients, say, hey, not available next half day because I'm going on a swimming date with my husband, or every last Friday of the month, I'm off for my mental health day and I'm just doing something for myself. I don't work that day. By doing those things and actively talking about them with my clients and with my audience on LinkedIn and whatever, I'm giving them permission to do that. And that is the thing for me. When I look in the mirror and I feel like I'm beautiful, it means that I have this inner balance. And that is what I want to have all of the people around me. Another example of what I really love, one of my clients has chosen sparkling for herself. Again, not a typical value word. And she came up with it because she had a lot about bringing the energy in her list. She had a lot about, again, self-care, and those are the things, the cause and effect, right? When you're taking care of yourself, you have the energy to give to the room. And she was like, I want to be this person who comes into the room and the party starts, or everyone just gets more cheerful. And just in the pre-chat, Katie, we talked about the colors. I usually have some bright colors in me. This is part of me bringing the energy to the room. And this is the thing, like she came up like, yeah, I want to feel sparkling. So those are just couple of examples for you guys to open up and be creative and playful with this exercise and thinking like you can come up with your own word that doesn't exist. As long as it's meaningful to you, and it will be this kind of effective inner check, like, am I being this right now? That will help you a lot.
Yes, I love this idea of the inner compass and using specific words. Like I said, we can rewire our whole behavior by actually using these words. I know we're already at the end of our show and conversation together. It has been absolutely amazing. I love everything you say. I love the idea of the 3 to 4 questions we can ask every day and the 3 words. I already came up with my 3 in my head, but I'll think about them before I say them because there might be others. Okay. But yes, great exercise. Thank you so much for being on the show today, Anna.
Thank you so much, Katie.
Where can people find you?
So LinkedIn is my platform where I'm most present. So please just find me by my name, Anna Liebel. And if you want to just learn more about me and listen to me without engaging, then a Genius Leadership podcast that is on all major platforms. Just tune in into that and hear my weekly conversations with leaders who inspire me.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for being here today. Thank you.
Thank you, Katie.